Hi, folks. I like to keep it fairly stoic here on YouTube. This is, after all, a music channel. And though this video is going to be of a different variety, the end goal is the same. So initially, I want to more or less personally thank all of you for 100 subscribers. That is starkly incredible to me, and I am deeply elated. Thank you so much. And if any of my content inspires you or encourages positivity or delivers you from a bad day, then that fulfills me in the warmest possible way, and you audiophiles know that I use that word sparingly. Please stay healthy, safe, and be kind to each other. Peace and love to you all. Now you too can showcase your music in the timeless interactive medium of vinyl. Introducing the Gakken toy record maker. Have you dreamed about hearing particular music or your own in this classic, tasteful fidelity? Perhaps you're an artist who's envisioned a 7-inch disc to sell at your merch table at concerts, give to your close friends and family, or pass around to local record stores to represent you. Gakken now offers an affordable lathe in this adult toy package. I don't think that translates quite the same way in the West. The usual price online for one of these ranges between $100 and $160 depending on the normal edition or the expanded edition. I would recommend the latter as you receive 20 discs as opposed to the usual 10 and 3 extra cutting needles as opposed to the usual 1. The player and cutter are the same in both cases, as are the other contents of the box, such as stickers and sleeves for your custom discs. Also included is a book with a lot of really neat literature about the Gakken company and the history of LP records in Japan. Also, our personal testimonies from a lot of internationally renowned musicians. And of course, the directions. For the lathe is a self-build. As you can see, the finished assembly here. Not a bad build, it's a finished product. USB power cable here. Comes with an audio cable. This is, I think, your little extension, for your classic 45 discs. And then this is your fixer piece. So you screw that on. It's actually lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So you want to go left to screw it on. And I guess you kind of want to screw it on fairly tightly because there's some friction involved when the tracking needle comes down. Let me make something clear. The custom discs native to the Gakken player are only 5 inches. This is a detail that I misunderstood before purchasing the product. It is not possible to lathe 7-inch discs on this thing. However, it is the cheapest possible lathing mechanism on the market. So, therefore, is it worth it? Well, if you're anything like me, then you're just as excited for the device's playback feature as you are for the cutting feature. It does have an onboard speaker, and it is really quite adorable when you remove the cutting arm. And you're going to have to play your 7-inch discs. There is not enough room on the turntable when the cutting room is present to occupy the 7-inch discs. Thankfully, the arm does slide on and off fairly easily, and locks into place when it's on. It connects and reconnects via a connector piece here in the wires. However, I do not feel confident in the connector's ability to disconnect and reconnect on a fairly frequent basis, so I usually just leave it sitting behind the device like some sort of gangrenous extremity. Those of you a little more familiar with record players probably don't need me to tell you that the playback is utter trash. I spent a good deal of time searching my collection for a small number of 45s that would adequately play on this device without skipping. The arm is very flimsy, has no anti-skating feature, and thus grooves with more natural amplitude, especially in the bass frequencies, cause the playback arm to jump and skip.
That being said, I was able to collect a number of 45s by a small number of particular artists that play quite well on the machine. Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Barbra Streisand, all of that orchestral ballad stuff from the old days works really well. Even James Taylor and Carole King play back very well and sound quite full through an external speaker. I'll post my demonstration music in the description below, but if anybody tries to make a strike, just know that I am protected under these statutes and limitations and guidelines of fair use. The most present aspect of the turntable itself, and by that I mean the most lossy quality, is the audio fluttering present mostly in the high and mid frequencies. From what I can deduce, this results from inconsistencies in the running of the motor and or in the mechanics of the gear and or belt system. This is really up to you as the listener as far as fidelity goes. And would you prefer to hear some of your 45s in an old lo-fi sound? That's up to you. However, if you're going for clarity, then there are better commercial record players on the market for cheaper that can give you a much clearer sound. So how about the native discs, your own creations? Surely music created on the device itself would prove less problematic. And the end goal with any laything project ought to be a variety of turntables. Before you can do that, you must prepare your audio. And to do that, you must understand the relationship between vinyl records and phonographic record preamps. All record player preamps affect their audio with a specific EQ curve known as the RIAA curve for Recording Industry of American Audio. So thus, any audio that is to be encrypted to vinyl needs to be affected by an opposite EQ curve to mitigate the effects of the preamp. As you can see here, the red line represents the official RIAA EQ curve as established by the Recording Industry of America in 1954. Although it went into practice earlier than that, it has become the internationally accepted standard for phonographic record preamps. So any audio that is to be lacquered or lathed or encrypted to vinyl in any way needs to have an opposite EQ curve applied to it. I found this most easily done in the free program Audacity because they have EQ effect presets designed specifically for it. If you don't EQ your audio in this way, it will cause either your cutting needle or your playback needle to jump, and thus your record will be unplayable. I've tried fiddling around with some other EQs, but the opposite RIAA EQ seemed to be the one that offered me the most clarity in any circumstance. Another point of note before you start cutting is the screw distance on the cutting arm between the head of the screw and the socket. The book recommends it to be 1 centimeter. I've seen other user accounts that recommend it at 9/10 of a centimeter, and that is what I went with and found the best results. This little pin is actually a retractable gear. It allows you to slide your cutting arm to your desired position along the disc, and then it pops right back into place and moves the cutting arm in respect to the turntable via a belt. As you can see, it's a lefty-tighty to screw the disc to the turntable. You're going to want to save the rubber piece on the end of your cutting needle because there is no way to stand the cutting needle up other than adjusting the height, and that messes up your whole setup. Volume knob is also your on and off switch. I turn it to maximum for playback through the cutting arm and control the volume from my audio source. You're going to want to make sure that your audio is cued through the cutting arm. Go ahead, set your cutting arm down and start your playback. And immediately you can already see what I like to refer to as the schmutz. Yeah, you're going to want to clear that, because if that is left unchecked, it will get in the way of your cutting needle and mess up your grooves. That is the dig out from the cutting needle. There's a better angle of it. I find if you can get it from that angle, that is the best way to feed it out. And the best way to do it is just good and steady like that. Just keep tugging on it. Not too much, you don't want to break it. Delicately enough that you can get a flow going. There it is when it's all done. So how does it sound? Has all this fine-tuning resulted in a product that adequately represents music in its original fidelity? Well, to find out, we'll be comparing a few recordings of my original song from my new album, The Denim Heart, New Frame. To demonstrate the universal use of the disc, I will also be testing it on a Jensen JTA 230 turntable. This is not a review of the Jensen turntable, and it is not my primary turntable. However, it was one of my first when I first began collecting vinyl records, and for a cheaper price, it is a much higher quality playback. I also find this turntable particularly useful in the playback of 45s. I lathe these copies at 45 RPM. As you can hear, the resulting sound is much darker, rich in mids, has less natural amplitude, and I would say is quite lossy. Now, it's important to note that in this instance, lossy does not necessarily mean it sounds bad. Lossy simply means that there are a lot of artifacts left over from the conversion process, such as the surface noise of the record itself. Also, as you saw, the discs are not universally functional in their entirety. Most record players cannot play the deepest, most possible parts of the grooves on the Gakken discs. You might be able to find a happy medium with 33 RPM and encrypting before it gets to that innermost portion, but then you lose the natural amplitude of 45 RPM. So again, and in conclusion, is it worth it? Well, to answer that question, I had a lot of fun. I'm a tactile kinesthetic type of person, so I was enthused about the self-building process. And I have a deep affinity for vinyl records, so I was open to experimentation, and as such, a lot of research went into it before I started this project, and I would recommend that to anybody who is interested in encrypting music to vinyl. The sound is very lo-fi, which might be in your interest for a particular piece of music or a particular track. If you're looking for a cheap way to produce hundreds of copies of commercial vinyl to sell at your merch booth or fill it out, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you're a dreamer of tomorrow, you'll probably find an interesting use for this novel device. Thank you for joining me on this project. I hope you found it as quirky and cute as I did. Tell me what you think in the comments. Are there specific pieces of music you think might sound good in this fidelity? Would you use it in regards to your own music production? Check out my debut album, The Denim Heart, link in the description. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you dislike, and remember, the trip is never really over.